Good morning, Virtual Village Hall, and good morning to anyone that's joining me this morning to listen to my talk about menopause and movement. So it's Menopause Awareness Month, not March 2025, October 2025. Apologies about that. As you can see below, it says World Menopause Day, which is coming up on the 18th of October, so this month. But my session today, I just want to talk to you about menopause and movement. So I'm Frances Rayner, fitness and wellbeing coach, and I've been working with Virtual Village Hall for about 3 years now, delivering seated exercise class on a Thursday afternoon at 12:30. So one of my favourite sessions of the week, and it's a fab workout for anybody who maybe is restricted to a chair, but also for anybody who's at their desk working, or just fancies doing something absolutely different. So I've been working in the fitness industry for about 4 years now, but I have been a participant in the fitness industry my whole life. Fitness sport has been my passion, and in the last 5 years, menopause has become my passion as well. So I deliver locally some courses. I run a menopause cafe locally, and I work with an abundance of women through my classes that I run face to face, where we're always having the menopause conversation. So anyway, without further ado, to this morning, I'm going to talk to you about why we need to move, why movement is so good for us when we are transitioning through menopause. And I also want to talk to you about some of the reasons why during menopause we must consider moving our bodies more, and what actually does quantify us more, and how can we do that. Right at the end, I want to talk to you about how we can make that a consistent habit. So yeah, if you have any questions, please do ask. The chat is open. I've got my comments open, so I can take any questions there in the comments. But if you're watching this on replay, then you can always pop some comments in, or questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to go back and look at them. Okay, so let's move on. So yes, I've told you who I am. I'm Frances Rayner, and one of the reasons I'm so passionate about women's health is because there is this massive healthcare gap, and it doesn't seem to be getting any smaller. And it's based on particularly there being very little research on women's health, and a lot of our medication that we take are not really designed for women, they're designed for men. And there's a few facts I want to share with you. So good morning, Irene, nice to see you here this morning. Do you know women are more likely to wait longer in A&E? You know, research and data in the UK show that women's symptoms are often underestimated or dismissed as less urgent. Women present in A&E and they're stereotyped as being anxious or stressed, and this kind of triggers a longer triage process, which is, can mean a longer waiting time. Women's symptoms we present very differently to men. We have less classic symptoms. Heart attacks is one of the most common ones, and which can mean that it just takes longer for that diagnosis. Often there's a lack of training, especially around menopause, especially around many women's health, PMS, PCOS, PMDD, many endometriosis. There's many conditions that women have that are just relevant to them, that the lack of training, joined up working approaches can mean that women take longer to get a diagnosis, take longer to get that care. And unfortunately, we do live in a male-centric medical world. Research has all been based around the male body, and that can mean that, again, knowledge can be lacking. It can mean that a lot less care really is taken around women's care. Not in every single situation, but we know in the UK that this is the case. We also know that women are on more waiting lists, or on longer waiting lists than men. Often we're waiting over 18 weeks for appointments, and that can be for many reasons, but it can also mean it's because there are conditions that are coming to light. Women are not as accepting anymore about the things that may feel might be wrong with them, and are looking for help. So the systems are getting, a little bit clogged up. Waiting times are getting longer and longer as we find our voice and ask for more help. So I suppose I want to lead into my presentation today with the fact that women need to shout louder. Women need to talk more. Women need to put themselves forward, and they need to ask for that care that they haven't always got in the past. And when they feel they're not getting it, they need to stand tall, and they need to ask more and more, and go back for second opinions. Don't be put off by what the medical professional is saying to you. If you believe and you know that you're feeling a certain way, and you know that's wrong, and you know that you need support and help with that, then we need to keep going back, and we need to keep asking. And if you feel that's something you can't do on your own, take an advocate with you, take somebody along, a partner, a friend, a colleague, someone with you who can help your voice get heard, because that is what is going to make all the difference and is going to make change come to light. So that's why I'm here today. Besides having a real passion for anything and everything menopause transition, those things are one of the reasons I want to talk to women more. So menopause affects every woman. No woman is going to get away without going through menopause, transitioning through, or going into an early menopause or a surgical menopause, dependent on what's happened to them. Every woman is going to experience hormone decline, hormone fluctuations, hormonal changes. So if somebody says to me, oh, it didn't really affect me, it hasn't really affected me, one of the go-to things I always do is I get my list of symptoms out, and I'll go, well, look, should we take a little look at these, and let's see, how you're feeling physically and mentally. And that's always really interesting, because women become quite surprised at how many symptoms they actually have. So menopause transition takes place on average from 41 years of age and continues for the rest of a woman's life. There is no end. We go through the transition points, so it could be perimenopause into, this is a standard approach, perimenopause into menopause when your periods end, into postmenopause when hormones are declining, and we stay there for the rest of our life. This long-term hormone insufficiency for the rest of our life. Female hormones affect a woman's life from the time of puberty, around when periods are starting, and will continue until a woman's life ends. These three sex hormones have a huge influence on a woman's physical and mental health, and they are really the powerhouse of a woman's body. They support and drive so many functions, and even now so much more research. We really do need more research that we can understand how these hormones work, not just in isolation, but they work together with each other and other hormones in the body, and what it actually means for a female to have those hormones decline. What does that bring about for the future? So it's really important to understand those these areas, because when we understand these basics, then we can start to think about, where am I in my transition? How do I feel? What's going to happen to me, between now and the end of my life, really. I know it sounds a bit morbid, but that's what we need to really be thinking about. And then thinking about, well, what can we do to support ourselves and make our lives more comfortable, and really to help us to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. So on average, women live to 85 years, with 71 years healthy. Men live to 79 years on average, with 69 years healthy. So we're living longer. Women are living longer, but spend more years with illness or with a disability. And you can see that, from the age of, 71, even younger for some women. I've got clients, I know women who are in their 60s whose health is declining already, and some of the issues that they have are probably going to be really difficult to come back from. It doesn't mean to say that they're not going to live a good life, a fulfilling life, but their life could be filled with hospital appointments, doctor's appointments, struggling to move, and just maybe feeling like their life is declining. So, and that will go on. Old age, of course, as we age, life will always get that little bit more difficult, because the body will wear up, things will change. But it's not an inevitable that we're going to live longer and have to live, with these 10 plus years feeling unhealthy, or actually being unhealthy. That is not an existence that we have to be prepared to take on board. There's a big difference between longevity, which is that living longer, and our health span. So living longer, but living, with many, many, many years of good life, where we're independent, where we can still go out and we do things that we want to do. We can be adventurous, we can play, we can do sport, we can, stay fit and well, be sociable. All of those things that we want to do, we can do those for a very, very long time to come. So what are the main biological differences between men and women? Well, hormonally, the biological differences. So women produce something called estrogen. So that's one of our sex hormones, and this comes from our ovaries and our brain, as well as we make some from our adrenal glands as well. As it declines, there is a steep increase in risk of things like cardiovascular disease, dementia, and osteoporosis. They're the three key things that there is huge amounts of research out there already. And we know that those things are, they're there, they're testimony, the studies, the research has been done. Men produce testosterone. So even though testosterone is a female hormone, and we produce plenty of it as well within from our ovaries and our adrenal glands as well, but men produce a huge amount of testosterone. That's what makes them male, give them their male appearance, from their testicles, which can be the driver of what we class as more risky behavior. They can get higher cholesterol levels and more aggressive disease as well. And that's the difference between those hormones that women have and how they can affect the female body, and men's hormones and how they can affect them as well. So there's something called the male-female health survival paradox. So men die earlier, often from preventable causes. So things like heart disease, accidents, suicide, violence, occupational hazards. But also men are also less likely to go to the doctors for regular checkups. And, it doesn't matter how many of my female clients I talk to about this, we know that, many women will say to me that they can't, get the husbands, partners, they're not interested in wellness checkups, or if they are, they're often left way too late. The screening tests that come through, it can be quite an upheaval to get men to actually take part in those, and as women, we need to obviously try and persuade the men in our life how important these tests are. But the current research shows that men are really less likely to do them. So then we don't kind of get this picture of how our health is until it's something too late. And then, it creeps up, or we have a catastrophic episode of something like a stroke or a heart attack, which can then really define what the rest of our years are going to be. Women experience more chronic disease. They live longer, but with more chronic disease, high rates of autoimmune disease, more frequent chronic pain, so things like arthritis and fibromyalgia, higher incidence of osteoporosis. More women than men will have osteoporosis, and mental health disorders as well, depression and anxiety. And these are the things that kind of lead to these we live longer, but we live with all these conditions along the way. Why? Well, there are, I'm not going to go into the biology of it, genetics and chromosomes, but women do have the presence of two X chromosomes. That and genetics can play a part in why health differs so much to men. But what I'm concentrating on today is about hormones, because they're a big trigger in terms of how our health will develop as we get older as well. So hormone decline and risk to our health. So here is just a short list, really. I'm sure there are many, many more. But things like sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, osteoporosis, which is bone loss, type 2 diabetes, obesity, cognitive decline, depression, suicide, and heart disease. So these are some of the key health risks that we have when our hormones decline. And that is because we have hormone receptors all over the body, estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors as well. So we need these hormones to work in conjunction with other areas within the body as well, and to work alongside with not just with the receptors, but they work together to help the body function, to help the body be this powerhouse, as I've described, where it can really keep us fit and well and ensure that all our organs are working really, really well. So in terms of exercise and in terms of our health, it's really useful to know how estrogen works in terms of our muscle and our bones as well. So estrogen stimulates natural replacement of bone. So we have something called osteoclasts, which break down bones, and we have osteoblasts, which build up bone. And what we need, and what happens is about every 10 years, our skeleton has evolved again, every 10 years. So it takes 10 years for those osteoclasts to break down all that bone, not in one go, it's doing it bit by bit by bit. It goes on this 10-year cycle. But what happens when estrogen declines? So estrogen, osteoblasts and estrogen work together and make sure that we keep building up bone, keeping our bones strong. So as estrogen declines, what then happens is that we the osteoblasts don't work quite so well, and the osteoclasts take over. So then we've got osteoclasts that are munching away at our bones, breaking them down, but then the osteoblasts are not working so efficiently and not building up that bone as well as it needs to be. And that's what can lead to osteoporosis, which is bone thinning. So if you think about a bone always looks like a little bit like honeycomb anyway, but the little gaps in the bone are really tight and really small. But as we get osteoporosis, those gaps get bigger, those holes get bigger, and our bones become more fragile. We want bones need to be really flexible. So even though they seem really hard to us, if you like, even your finger, if you really press on your finger, you can feel the bone there. It feels really, really hard. But all the bones in the body have a sense of flexibility. They are flexible. So as we walk, they flex and bend, and it's not until they become weaker that they lose that flexibility, they lose that strength, and then that they become more susceptible to breaks and fractures as well. So estrogen is massively important for our bone health. Estrogen is also really important for our muscle health as well. So it stimulates, again, natural replacement of muscle. When estrogen declines, it reduces the body's ability to build or maintain muscle. And then women will start to feel like they're becoming a lot weaker. They're losing their strength. They're not feeling as strong as what they did once before. I have many women say to me, their legs feel relatively strong because they may be up on their feet a lot, they walk, but their upper body becomes weaker, weaker in the shoulders, weaker in the arms. And that then means that they have increased muscle fatigue, for instance, and they have decreased muscular strength as well. So some of the tests for that, I'm going to talk a little bit more in a little while, but it's things like, when you are lifting and carrying things, is it becoming more difficult? Are you resorting to, rather than carrying your shopping bags when you go shopping, are you resorting to a shopping trolley so that you can push them instead, because that might feel much easier? Are you struggling to carry your if your grandchild wants to picking up, are you struggling to pick up your grandchild or even your children? Because muscle mass declines from as early as your late 30s. So in your 30s, we can see muscular changes and see that muscular decline, and that's quite young. So that's as we come into midlife itself. So when our muscles are not strong enough, when our bones are not strong enough, we become a higher risk of frailty and higher risk of falls as well. We need strong muscles. We need our tendons. So when our muscles are strong, they pull on the tendons and the ligaments, which are attached to the bones. So we then have this force and this load that goes onto the bones, into the muscles, that builds them up and makes them strong. So when we are not putting that load through the bones, through the muscles, then our everything becomes much frailer, much weaker. And then when we fall, we can end up with a fracture, whether it's an arm or a leg or somewhere else within the body. But we become much more susceptible to those falls and those fractures. I think it's really useful to understand that 1 in 2 women will get osteoporosis, and that is a fact. And I think that's really quite devastating news, because, if you put yourself in a room with all your friends and you was to, look around the room, you could go, well, depending on how many friends are there, but even if it's just you and a pal, you go, well, one of us is going to get osteoporosis. That osteoporosis could lead to, if I'm not keeping my muscles strong. So the osteoporosis may already be there. You may be genetically more susceptible to osteoporosis because it's in the family. But, we're going to become more susceptible to it as our estrogen declines, and if we're not replacing our estrogen as well, and then we become more at risk. So the big break is a hip fracture. So when we break the hip, we really can struggle with recovery. And in actual fact, there's a 30% mortality rate with hip fracture. So 30% rate of dying if we have a hip fracture. 60% rate of loss of independence. So if you break a hip, the chances are you're going to maybe end up having to go into care, whether that's your family caring for you or whether that's going into a care home. And the 10% I'm not talking about might bounce back. That's a really small percentage of people that actually bounce back from a hip fracture, and that can be devastating. That absolutely life changing if you end up losing your independence, but massively devastating for families, to lose a loved one because they've fractured a hip and they just can't recover. Okay, so good reasons. And also, when we move our body, things like type 2 diabetes, even if you're a pre-diabetic, you can improve your outcomes with diabetes, with movement, obesity, also mentally, cognitive decline. When we work out, when we do exercise, we get out in nature, things can really improve cognitively. It can massively. The research is all there around movement and mental health, anxiety and depression, and also heart disease. We need to move as much as we can to protect our heart. If we have not been able to replace our hormones, if we are, we feel that we're past that point where we wouldn't want to go back and try hormones, even though they are very, very different today to what they were even 5 years ago. Or if we've been told we can't have our hormones back because of other illnesses and other conditions, when we move, when we exercise cardiovascular wise or strength training, we can really improve our outcomes when it comes to these risks to our health. Okay, and that's the message that I want to really get across today. So benefits of regular movement, it can improve arthritis symptoms, it can manage Parkinson's disease and reduce symptoms. And I've got great evidence of that. I've got a client with Parkinson's disease who I personal train with, and the benefits that this lady has seen through keeping up regular exercise, even though things are difficult because of her Parkinson's. So it reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes. It can improve cognition and memory. These things I've already said. It reduces inflammation. So thinking about chronic pain, thinking about autoimmune diseases, that are driven by an inflammatory response in the body. If we work hard, reduce that inflammation, then that can be really supportive. Boost our mental health, lowers our risk of some cancers, without a doubt. The research is in on that. Strengthens our bones, maintains and develops muscle mass, maintains a healthy weight, and can reduce back pain. So if you are sedentary in a chair for work or just life in general, or because you have a health condition, just getting up and moving can be really beneficial. So what can we do to prepare our body to age well? So all the bad news is what I've just given you, but it's really important that we understand and we know what the outcomes can be. We have choices. So our choices are that we do nothing. That's our starting point. So we know we need to do something, because every single woman is going to go through menopause transition. These hormonal changes starting really from the age of 41 on average onwards. So we know this is going to affect us. We know that we can't get away from it. We know that there's nowhere to hide. It's going to happen. So really it's about understanding then what we can do to prepare our body to age well, and making those decisions. Your choice, always your choice. And so what I'm going to do in the rest of my presentation is just talk you through these few things that you can do that can make a huge difference to your overall well-being and your health as you age. So number one, replace your hormones. So hormone replacement therapy, HRT, or just hormone therapy, as it's often known now, is the number one medication that is detailed on the NICE guidance for menopause, that is there to support women with menopause transition. It's also noted within the guidance how estrogen replacement can support bone health and heart health and dementia as well. So those three things are there at the very least. And for many women, there are opportunities still. So there's a lot of information out there around making sure you optimize your hormones within 10 years of menopause. Well, that's really important. But we also know that for women who are 10 years outside of their menopause, that there might still be some optimum relief that can be got from replacing your hormones. And you shouldn't just assume because you've never had hormone therapy that you're never going to be able to have it. Go and have a sensible conversation with your healthcare professional and talk to them about the risks and benefits for you as an individual. But never say never. Never think that it's too late, because it isn't. And if you are on hormone therapy and you have been for a long time, then there is nothing to say you ever have to come off it. It's there for life if you want it, and you can, and the benefits outweigh the risks. So it's really important that you understand some of these basic concepts so that you can go and talk to your GP and have a sensible conversation. So when we talk replacing hormones, we're going to replace estrogen, progesterone, and we can replace testosterone as well. And those hormones today come in really different preparations to what they did even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and most definitely over 20 years ago, when the 2002 Women's Health Initiative study was ended, and it was reported that HRT can cause breast cancer. And that is what caused this humongous scare and made women run from the hills from HRT, made doctors take their patients off HRT. And there we have a whole generation of women who, quite frankly, I believe have been let down by the system massively. And and many say to me, it feels very unfair now, because whether they have the evidence or not, that many of them, you know, if they're on blood pressure medication, or they've got high cholesterol, or they've got joint aches and pains, you know, they've got frozen shoulder, you know, they've got sleep disturbance, you know, they've got all sorts of things going on, you know, and, you know, attributing that to their hormones can be quite dismissed. It's not all about age, and hormones can play a real part in those ongoing issues as you get older. So for younger women in perimenopause, you know, just because you're having a period doesn't mean to say you can't replace those hormones. So it's really important that you go and get advice and guidance from your GP wherever you are in your transition point. You know, one of the things I always say is, get yourself a checklist, get yourself a list of menopause symptoms, go through that list, check them off, and monitor. Keep monitoring and keep going back to your GP. Do not take no for an answer, and always ask for a second opinion if you feel you need one. Hormone replacement today is body identical, it's systemic through the skin, it's modern, it's fresh, it's, you know, it's safe for the majority of women. So please do not be scared. And by replacing your hormones, you're protecting your bones, you're protecting your muscles, you're protecting your organs, you are protecting your brain, you're protecting your heart. So it's really important that, you know, you make those choices and those decisions for yourself, and that you are guided by your healthcare professional down that route. Okay, so that's number one. I don't want to labour too much about hormone replacement therapy. What I would say is do follow or do your research. Couple of really good places. So Dr. Louise Newson, she has an app called Balance App, or you can go on her website, Balance Menopause. She has so much information. Dr. Louise Newson, she is our UK leading GP who's leading the way, talking about menopause and trying to make change wherever she can to support women. So I would really take a little look at her. But then there's other, if you're on social media, you know, you can follow people like Diane Danzibrink, so Menopause Matters, Menopause Support is Diane. There's also Menopause Matters. You've got the BMF, the British Menopause Society, the British Menopause Society. They've got a wealth of resources there available. Wellbeing of Women, so it's really worth having a little look at their website as well. They do masses of research around women's health, but also have an abundance of resources there available as well, that you can take a look at. There are some shining lights from the USA that you can follow on social media. So Dr. Vonda Wright, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, to name a couple. But, you know, these are the female women's health gurus. These are women who really care with passion about women and their hormones. And, you know, by following them and listening to all that great science-backed information can really help you to wade your way through what can be a minefield, and give you a sense of hope, really, that you know, you can navigate your way through hormone replacement without any danger at all. Progressive resistance training. So no matter what age, you can, if you haven't done any resistance training, it's never too late to start. You know, you could join a gym, you could get yourself a personal trainer, you can do this online. You don't have to everyone doesn't have to do it the same way. You could go outside. If you love being outside in nature and you love walking and running, you can add your resistance training into your routine. If you love yoga and you love Pilates, then you know, find classes where they're doing lots of body weight exercise, or they're adding in things like weights and bands as well. So, you know, you can find your thing that you're going to enjoy that can really help you to develop your muscle mass and develop lean muscle, and to help you get stronger. So progressive resistance training is really important, because that is what we can all go and grab ourselves some 2 kilogram, 3 kilogram weights, get ourselves a little routine, and we can do that day in, day out, without that will just get easier and easier and easier. When we say progressive, what we've got to do is just keep overloading the muscle. We have got to keep getting, slightly heavier weights, progressing those weights, progressing the moves that we are doing as well, which is why it's really important to find somebody, whether it's someone online or someone within your community can help you to do that. What we must also remember is, we've got loads of muscles. We can see them in our arms, in our legs, but we've also got those hidden pelvic floor muscles that are protecting and creating a sling to hold in all our pelvic organs as well. So we need to work and progressively work those muscles as well, which is really, really important. So whether it's with weights, as you can see on my slide here, we've got ladies with dumbbells, we've got a lady there with a barbell, we've got another lady with a band around her legs. Any of those things can add resistance to your strength workout. And one of the things, if you ever come and join me at SitFit on a Thursday, we use bands a lot. We use them long bands for our arms, we wrap them around our legs, and we work our legs with them as well. So we use, even though we're sat in a chair, we use resistance to help with our muscular strength and endurance as well. So progressive resistance training, what does that look like? So progression as in, let's build up to slightly heavier weights. If we get to the point where we're doing lots and lots of repetitions and the weight feels easy, then we need to move up and we need to go as heavy as we can on those weights. Even if you can only do 3 or 4 repetitions, at that point, you're overloading the muscle, you're damaging the muscle, which is good. You're damaging all those little muscle fibers. And then from that point onwards, we take a bit of rest, we eat the right nutrition, and then what we get is we get a build-up of those muscles as well. So we get the muscle grows bigger, it grows stronger. We're not going to end up like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It would take absolutely forever. Well, women just couldn't do it, to be honest. But, there are women who are very lean, got lots of muscle, bodybuilders, women who do competitions. But, it's whether you find that attractive or something that you would want within your body. But, many women now are seeing that as attractive in themselves because they feel strong, and feeling strong is what is really important. And as we work through and we build those muscles through that resistance training, we're strengthening up the tendons and the ligaments, which is then going to really support our bone health as well. Okay, so if you're not doing any strength training, if you're not doing any resistance training at all, then it's time to start. Even forget the hormones, you might already be optimizing your hormones, or you might never have had it. And even if you have got, achy knees, achy hips, when we start to move, movement can create lubrication in the joints. Estrogen is an anti-inflammatory lubricating hormone. So when it declines, that's why our joints can feel stiff and we may not want to move them. So when we move, we lubricate, and that means that we can move them much better. And gradually over time, we'll move them more and more. Add power and speed to your workouts. So agility is really important. We lose our agility as we age because we don't do enough power and enough speed. So power walking, running, jumping, those sorts of things where we are doing more explosive movements, we're changing our direction, changing our speed. We are building up fast twitch, those fast twitch muscles, which are affected by hormones. Hormonal loss and also aging as well. So when we change direction, it could be side to side movement. It might be we're walking backwards as well. All of these things will help us with our muscle development. It will help us with our joint development as well. And it also helps us, our reaction time. So if we have got the ability to do a power move, for instance, we do a jump, even if it's a small jump, you know, if we've got a power move, if we can move with a bit of speed, if we go to trip and fall, what it means is we can put our foot out and we can stop ourselves from falling. You know, but if we have lost that ability to do that, then that means that, you know, when it comes to like we have that trip, even if it's something small, we could find ourselves going down on the floor. Okay, so building up, adding some power, adding some speed to your workout. So next time you go for a walk, you know, it's time to go, right, I'm going to do more power walk and I'm going to walk much faster. Excuse me, even if you don't, you know, even if you don't run, walking is incredible. It's free. You know, so much you can do with a good walk. You know, we can speed up, we can slow down, we can take some weights with us, we can stop and do a few press ups against a tree or against a fence. You know, there's loads that we can do while we're out on a walk as well to add in that resistance work. But it's getting that speed up, using that power as well. And balance, you know, preparing our body to age well. If we lose our balance, that means we are going to really, really struggle. We're going to struggle to stay on our feet. We're going to struggle to stay in a chair. You know, we're going to really put ourselves at risk of a fall, you know, because as we lose our balance, we become more frail. I work with ladies and gents who are in their 40s who struggle with balance, in their 50s who struggle with balance. But I've equally worked with women and men in their 70s who struggled with balance, and we have turned that balance around. We've improved balance through a few really basic exercises. One being, when you're cleaning your teeth, stand on one leg and clean your teeth. You know, do that for a few seconds. Well, 10 seconds is optimum, but you could do it for a little bit longer. Keep changing your feet. You know, the better our balance, the better, or it means that we're less likely to fall. We're less likely to end up, you know, in the street, on the floor if we have a little trip. Or in our own home as well. So, and balance is one of those things I always think it creeps up on us. We don't really know that our balance is gone until it's gone. So test your balance. Can you stand on one leg for 10 seconds? That is the key, really. Try each leg, because we can be very different from one foot to another as well. Okay, and other balance exercises. So here, this lady, we've got a lady here who's standing on one leg. She's using a chair, and then the lady's progressed to standing on one leg without a chair. That's fantastic. The lady in the middle, she's doing, you can see there's a line on the floor. She's doing a heel-toe walk along that line. Fantastic for balance. Give it a go. It's not as easy as it looks. I always get my clients to go in their kitchen where they've got a line of tile grout. Use that as your tightrope. And then, oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. And then what we've got down here is we've got a couple of ladies here doing, well, I'm going to say Pilates because that's what I teach. And this is Superman. And they are balancing on one knee, one hand. And that in itself can be really tricky if you've never done it before. Okay, so moving our bodies, the World Health Organization, UK government recommendations that we do 150 minutes of cardio exercise a week, 2 times strength training sessions a week. So cardio exercises like your aerobic exercise, so that's walking, swimming, cycling, running. 2 times strength training, well, that's your resistance work. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours in a gym. You can have a 15-20 minute program that's really loaded, you know, with lots of exercises, lots of weight, and that can be enough, or really heavy bands or whatever it is you're choosing to use. It doesn't have to be hours. So if time is not on your side, then we need to kind of lose that vision of I need loads of time to do this, because you don't. You can do this in short periods of time. And you could also do it as what I call exercise snacks, movement snacks, you know. So rather than doing a session of strength training, you can have a little list of different things that you're going to do. Every time you go put the kettle on, as that kettle boils, you could do squats. Next time you go in, you could do press-ups against the worktop. Next time you go in, you could get a bag, a heavy bottle or something, and you could do shoulder press. You could kind of lift it above your head. There are so many things that you could do using everyday objects and weaving it in to everyday life. What I've got here is in perimenopause, the research has shown that 2 sessions a week is enough. You know, obviously do more if you need to, but 2 sessions is adequate. But post-menopause and beyond, we need larger volumes of training, and that can look like 3+ sessions a week. And I think that will very much depend. So if in perimenopause or previous life you were exercising regularly, strength training regularly, you probably can continue your regime into post-menopause. But if you're new to this, you're going to find that you might need to do more sessions, because a larger volume of training is needed to make that inroads and to make changes as well. So, and that's where talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about, so a personal trainer, going to the gym, you know, your local council gym, and getting some help and advice there. Or you could find, I'm a fitness and wellbeing coach. I advise women, and you know, people book in, you know, not necessarily to just do personal training with me, but they'll book in to talk about the stuff that I'm talking to you about today, and might book, and we can talk about what their individual needs are. But if you haven't got time for any of that, and that's not something you're interested in, go on YouTube. There's loads of really good, you know, here in the UK, we've got Joe Wicks. He's got some great programs, you know, that are available, you know, free things on his YouTube page as well. So, you know, stuff that doesn't even need to be paid for. And of course, just going back, Virtual Village Hall. You know, I know there are people like myself that are working for Virtual Village Hall who are doing other forms of exercise. I do seated exercise, but there are other people within. Just look at the program and then go back, you know, go back into YouTube and have a look at some past videos as well, because there's a wealth of information there at our fingertips, free for us to use, just there at our fingertips, you know, that can really, really support us. So moving our bodies, we need to make it a consistent habit and really try to enjoy it. And you know, I said at the beginning, you have a choice. So you can choose to do absolutely nothing. You can choose to to kind of go, okay, well, I know that information, I'm not ready to do that yet, I'll wait until I am, you know, and that day may come or it may not come, but that is our prerogative. That's why we have choice. We can choose the things that we want to do, the things that are going to really support us. But what we have to be mindful of, if we choose to do nothing, then all of those health risks that I've talked about, they're the things that are going to creep up on us. And if we go right back to the beginning of the presentation, when I said, you know, that 85 is the average age women live to, but from about the age of 71 years onwards, we live in poorer health and disability. And for some, it's much sooner than that. So we need to, here's a few things, how we can make a consistent habit and really enjoy it. So start small. Every little thing you do counts. So if it's a movement snack, when you go and make the cup of tea in the morning or in the afternoon, and you just do it once or twice, that's going to count. All going to count towards your sessions of strength training. You know, I've already said we don't need to spend hours on long workouts. 5 to 10 minutes of walking, stretching can really help. The key really is consistency over intensity. You know, it's better to move as many times as you can in a consistent habit than it is to really push too hard and then you can't do any more. So another place where we build habits around drink, go into the kitchen, getting a drink, but we also make habits around cleaning our teeth. So that could be you clean your teeth in the morning, in the evening, sometimes, you may clean them after other meals during the day. Make that your point when you're going to do some squats, when you're going to do your press ups, so that you've got those little schedules there already. Schedule it, put it in your diary, make it like an appointment. This is self-care. This is not self-indulgence. This is self-care because you want to preserve your body as you age, and you want to have a long health span, not just a long life. So treat movement like it's an important task. Put it on your calendar. Prioritize it over other things. You have permission to do that. And too many times we prioritize other things ahead of it. Have a set time. So for me personally, I'm a morning person. I get up, I like to do my workout in the morning. For some people, they know that they're more fatigued in the afternoon, so they want to do things earlier in the day. For other people, they know that morning's not their best time, so wait until later in the day can really, really help. Make it enjoyable. Choose what feels good. Always choose movement that you enjoy. Dancing is one. Going for a good walk with friends is another. Playing a sport, however old you are, go and play badminton or tennis or netball, something that you can really relate to and something that is really fun and enjoyable, because you are more likely to stick to it. But I just want to caveat that with, if you are one of those people that go, oh, I don't, it's not for me, I don't like exercise, I've never exercised, I just don't enjoy it. Well, the bad news is that that's kind of tough. We've got to prioritize it. We've got to make it feel like it's a part of our life. And it's something that is not just a chore that we have to get on with. This is something that could transform your life, save your life, make your life more enjoyable. Pair it with a habit, stack it onto something else. So like the cleaning your teeth, it's like, linking that movement to something you already do regularly. That will make it much, much easier. And finally, track it. I think it's really good. Track it, write it down, put it on your diary. What have you done? Look at your progress. Set yourself a little task. Can I stand on one leg for 10 seconds? No, I can only just about manage 3 seconds. Well, then write down every day how many seconds, and just so that you can see that progress that's being made. And celebrate your progress. Why not? Take the wins. If there's something that you're doing and you're doing it really well, then really, really celebrate those wins. Treat yourself. It might be that you might treat yourself to something new, like a new pair of leggings or a new t-shirt, or you might just treat yourself to a bit of time extra to go out for that walk or spend time with friends as well. Okay, so they are really important ways in which you can get a consistent habit. Personally, I want everybody to enjoy movement. I want everyone to enjoy how their bodies feel after they have moved, because I don't think I've had anyone ever say to me that after a class that they feel worse for it. I really don't think that is the case. So I think it's really important that we try and boost our mental health, boost our physical health. And if we're in that menopause transition, wherever we are, all exercise can be really helpful, not just to improving your bone health and your muscular health, but it can help with hot flushes, it can help with cognitive issues, it can help with mood, it can help with anxiety, it can help with heart. There's so many symptoms that exercise, for a woman, that exercise can really, really help with as well. You need to go and give it a go if you haven't already. Or maybe you remember, maybe you go, I do remember feeling so much better after I'd exercised, but I've just got out of the habit. Well, come on, let's get back into a habit, and let's try and make it consistent this time and keep it going. Okay, so there we have it. Movement and medicine, not medicine, movement and our hormones. Here we are on menopause. I'm getting really muddled up with mental health with Menopause Awareness Month. So I hope you found that interesting and useful. If you have got any questions, do pop them in the chat. You can always pop a comment underneath the video if you're watching this much later on catch up and replay. Or I've popped my details on here. You can WhatsApp me. You can go through my website. You can have a little look at my website and see what I do. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. And I'm also, forgot to put it on there, but I am on YouTube as well. YouTube with Virtual Village Hall, but I also have my own YouTube channel. So I've got a few freebie workouts on there as well. Okay, so there we go. Thank you so much for attending this morning. I hope you found that useful. And I look forward to any questions that might come in. Jack May, thanks for a great presentation, Frances. Wish this info had been available 20 years ago. Look forward to your next exercise session. Thanks for keeping us going. Thanks, Jack. That's really great to read. I know, and I have many women in my classes who all go, why didn't we know this 20 years ago? Why? But don't lose heart. Keep going. Like you said, keep going, keep moving, keep exercising, because it can really benefit you whatever stage you are at as well. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that this morning as well. So, okay, I'm going to over and out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the rest of the program within Virtual Village Hall. It's always a good one. And thank you, Virtual Village Hall, for hosting my session here this morning. And I will see you all on Thursday. Thank you all. Take care.